Some new developments in the trial against a retired D.C. police lieutenant, Shane Lamont. He's accused of betraying his badge and then acting as an alleged double agent for the far-right Proud Boys.
Yeah, today the defense called their former leader, Enrique Tarrio, to the stand as a key defense witness. Tarrio, you might recall, is currently serving 22 years in federal prison for his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
Our digital reporter Jordan Fisher was in the courtroom today with the latest. And so, Jordan, we know Enrique Tarrio should probably be pretty well known to everybody at this point. You covered his sedition trial. He ran the Proud Boys. And so the question is, so what did Lamont's defense feel was so critical that they needed to call Tarrio to speak?
Yeah, Leslie, that was the big question for all of us who've been observing this trial. Why call somebody with so many potential negatives? And if you want to know what those are, consider, for example, that Enrique Tarrio himself chose not to call Enrique Tarrio as a defense witness at his trial last year. Here's what he said on the stand. As you recall, Lamont is accused of feeding information to Tarrio and the Proud Boys about the investigation into a Black Lives Matter flag burning in December 2020. Tarrio said he never received any consequential information from Lamont, and most importantly for Lamont's defense, he was never tipped off about an arrest warrant that had been signed at the end of the year and as he was coming to D.C. ahead of that January 6th rally.
All right, Jordan, so we know Tarrio, he ended up going back and forth with prosecutors and even refusing to acknowledge many of their exhibits. So do you think he was ultimately the credible witness that the defense needed here?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, his testimony began almost immediately on cross-examination with a threat from the judge to hold him in contempt if he refused to answer questions. He said initially he wouldn't respond to any questions about January 6th or whether Proud Boys had come in attendance. He eventually acknowledged that perhaps some members of the Proud Boys had come to D.C. ahead of January 6th. The judge also made a comment about whether ultimately he would be found credible. He spent the majority of the afternoon refusing to answer questions, saying he couldn't acknowledge whether any of the texts that prosecutors showed him between him and Lamont were even real, and repeatedly saying he couldn't recall any of their conversations.
Oh, okay.
So we know Lamont has a number of other witnesses still to call on his own list. Do we know what he expects them to say?
Shane Lamont's big defense is that he was doing his job not as an investigative member of the D.C. Police Department, but as the head of the intelligence branch, and that meant he needed to cultivate relationships with people like Tarrio and get intel from him about what their plans were for First Amendment rallies and protests in D.C. Now, two of the big witnesses still left on his list are the former director and assistant director of intelligence for the U.S. Capitol Police. Now, what they very well could be asked is, was Lamont providing you useful information about what the Proud Boys were thinking ahead of the January 6th rally? His attorney has already telegraphed earlier in this trial that that is going to be a big part of their ultimate defense argument to the judge as to why she should not find former Lieutenant Lamont guilty of obstructing a police investigation and lying to federal investigators.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be watching to see what happens for sure.
Jordan, thank you.